also want to talk to you about another dimension here, which has such amazing impact on our understanding of what's happened around the world, and that is, of course, the biblical account of the Tower of Babel. Now, give us some insight here, because you've written a book on this, because we're talking not only about languages, we're talking about then developing skin colors and differences and the dispersal of people groups from around the world. Any thoughts here on the value of understanding the Tower of Babel?
Right. There's so much, not just historically, but also archaeologically, just so people can track with us. Big picture, God creates everything in 6 days. It was a perfect creation. We expected nothing less from a perfect God. Because of man's sin, death, and suffering came into the world. That's why we need a Savior to save us from sin and death. But then, we have this flood about 1,600 years or so after God created everything. And that, of course, rearranged continents, shifted things around. Now, what's significant is after the flood, only 8 people survived the flood, Noah and his family. And God said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. But what we saw was the descendants of Noah came together and they said, let's build a city, let's build a tower, let's not be scattered. They tried to defy God's command on that, and God wasn't going to let them get away with it. And so he came down and he, in a very gentle way, he actually confused their languages so that scattered them to go to different parts of the world. Now, that scattering split apart the gene pool. And as people go to different parts of the world, the gene pool is now split apart. People who ended up in Scandinavia took genes for lighter skin. People who ended up in Africa took genes for darker skin. People went to the Orient, took genes for more of an almond-shaped eye. But I want people to understand we're all related. We all go back to Noah. We all go back to Adam, which means there's only one race, and that is the human race. And, back in old dictionaries, it used to say Adam's race. We're all part of that human race, no matter what we look like, which means we're all sinners. We're all in need of Jesus Christ, regardless of how we look. I look at different people around the world and, I say, wow, how do they have such a good full head of hair? Here I am struggling, losing my hair. But we're all related. So somewhere out there, somebody's got the genes for the hair. I've lost those. But, that's just a taste of the peoples. Now, if we shift over to the archaeology, which is just another fascinating subject, we know where Babel was. And archaeologically, they've been digging that out ever since about 1899. It was Koldewey, a German archaeologist, that actually started to lead that research. Now, for the last 100 years or so, a lot of the Germans have been the ones who have been digging things up and documenting all that. So a lot of us English speakers are kind of been left out in the cold. Well, recently, Professor George, he was a professor there in London, England, as I recall, and he translated a lot of the information, a lot of what these archaeologists have been doing. And I was pretty excited when I read that particular article because, they were talking about 3 different bases where the tower actually stood. And, if you, search for this, even on Google Earth, you can go down and see the archaeological remains. You can see the footprint where the tower was. And, of course, it's been rebuilt, torn down, and all sorts of things over the years. And we have a lot of records of that. But it was neat to see those 3 different bases, which gives us a pretty good idea of how big the tower was, a pretty good sized structure.
Well, we're talking genealogies, we're talking the Tower of Babel, we're also talking about the dispersal of people around the earth. You might have a question, you might have a comment, you might have a critique for the conversation. We're going to talk some more with our very special guest, Bodie Hodge, who's a speaker, writer and researcher for Answers in Genesis. We're back with more in just a few moments, and our talkback line is open on 1-800-316-316.